Hey everyone, welcome to the One More podcast. I am here. This is Jason. I'm here with Peter. Peter, welcome.
Hey, good to see you, man.
Hey, good to see you too. Yeah, it's good to be here. I'm glad we get to do the second one of these. Hopefully, if you're listening to this, you listen to the first one. If not, go back and listen to it. I think in the first one we explained a little bit of what we're trying to do and why we're trying to do it. I guess I can reiterate that here just in a second. But one of the things we want to do going forward is really try and find opportunities to just be outward, relentlessly outward in our mindsets, how we're thinking about life. One of the things Jesus calls us to is make disciples of all the nations, and that begins in our neighborhoods. So we are the ones in this nation, and we want to do our best to fulfill that commandment. The one that Jesus calls us to as Christians. And so the question is, how do we do that? And what does that look like? And we want to try and spend some time exploring this. My goal, Peter, I don't know if you have the same kind of mentality. I think you do. We've talked a little bit, but I'd love to start here. We have some basics. I think we're going to hit today. We're going to hit the Slido results. If you were at church when we first started talking about this, we did a poll up on the screen and we had some results. We're going to share those, at least half of those today, and then next time as well. But then eventually, I'd love to even pull other people into this occasionally that are more evangelists. There's people around that I think would have degrees in things like apologetics. I think we could talk to and really just equip you. Our goal is to equip you as a church. And if you're not at Anchor Church, maybe you're just jumping into this to equip you as well. We want Christians to know what it looks like to live for Him in this kind of way. So it's
Yeah,
discipleship and going forward. You would agree with that?
absolutely. Yeah, I think this is, man, this is the next step of, after I've said yes to Jesus and I'm in a element of growing in my faith. I think part of growing in your faith is how do I share this with other people? One way that I'm going to grow is if I'm actually in opportunities to point people to Jesus, explain my faith, walk through it with somebody. Um, Because yeah, like I think the way God made it is like it's not just supposed to be an individual faith where I just kind of get my ticket to heaven and then I kind of until wait around until I get to heaven. No, this is a journey. This is experience, and He's inviting others into it.
Yeah, that's good.
And Yeah, I think this podcast is just an opportunity for it. And yeah, I'd love to bring other people into it as well. Because I think even in our church, there are people who are doing this,
Yeah.
who are walking with other people, with non-believers, nothing like super impressive or trying to like put on a show. It's just doing life with people and seeing lives changed because of it.
Mm. Yeah. And I think that for some people, who maybe just are gifted in a specific way to be bold and share the gospel. I mean, I think I said this in the first sermon that we had a few weeks ago, but missionary work and being a disciple maker in terms of I'm avoiding just the discipleship part, but just the sharing the gospel with somebody, having them come out like that is not a gift. That's something we're called to do. Like an evangelist, someone who just comes naturally at it and doesn't have to think about the things we're going to talk about today. They just kind of do it. They're gifted that way. I would love it if that was my bent. It's not. I have to work at it. And so if you're like me, hopefully this is going to be a helpful podcast. Let me just hit the top six things. We asked questions. If you weren't there, we asked everybody to kind of rank the top 12. I'm sorry, we had 13 questions, 13 things that were kind of out there, statements or something that would make you maybe reasons that you don't share the gospel. We had 13 of them. We said rank your top six. And so this was the results. These are the top six that came out. By far, the number one was I'm not sure where to start or how to start. So when you think about sharing the gospel and evangelism, where to start and how to start was by far the highest one. And then below that was I'm not confident about what to say. Interestingly, they both have to do with our sharing, our communication.
Yeah.
Both of those two things, and then the third one actually is the same. I'm not sure how to say it. So the top three for you, if you're listening to this, are likely you have some of this in you, just not sure what to say, where to say it, how to start saying it, what to say if someone asks a question about it, like how do I think about that? Those are the top three. And then the fourth one is I'm fearful of rejection or loss of relationships. So there's a friendship factor. How are people going to view me? What is that going to, I don't want people to think I'm weird. I mean, those things I think hit there. Number five, I'm lacking knowledge, can't answer their questions, which kind of links into the top three. And then the sixth one, I'm fearful of looking foolish, which kind of links into the fourth one. So really what we found, I think, data wise, is that people generally, and this would mirror me as well, aren't sure what to say, how to say it, how to start saying it, and they're afraid about looking foolish or it's going to change my relationship with somebody. Which makes sense. I mean, I totally get that. Is that your experience working at Athletes in Action? Like as you guys talked on campus and
Yeah.
you've worked with crew, like is that pretty common for kind of the global evangelical world?
Yeah, extremely common. Like when I saw these results, I was not surprised one bit. Like this is universal when it comes to this topic of sharing your faith, evangelism, whatever you want to call it. There is this kind of inherent fear, unspoken, spoken, everybody has different rhythms for it, but it always comes back to like I'm gonna mess it up. Maybe I'll start to say something and I'm just like and I think that usually comes from there's this like down the road picture that we think it should look like. And and if I'm not kind of getting it there, if they're not responding to it and happy about it and all in about it immediately, then I suck. Then I screwed it up. Then why should I even try? And so it like paralyzes a lot of believers, unfortunately, because there's this picture of what they think it should look like, but really at the end of the day, like you said, like man, we're just called to go and to share. And so yeah, so these results really just showed again, just man, we all are kind of paralyzed by this inherent fear of man, what do I say?
You just mentioned something that just made me curious. You said evangelism or sharing your faith, whatever you want to call it. Have you found that it's better to use the phrase sharing your faith as opposed to evangelism? Because I think even what we're going to talk about today a little bit, sharing my sharing my personal faith with somebody seems like a less scary thing than some word that comes from the Greek word evangelion, and we have to transliterate it into English to be evangelism. And so now
Yeah,
what does that even mean? And we got to define it. As opposed to sharing your faith is like, hey, what I'm doing with somebody is I'm literally just sharing with them why I believe what in the God that I believe in. Like it seems less scary. Is that something you guys have?
totally.
I mean, have you guys talked? Is that what crew? Again, I'm pulling on your crew
Yeah,
experience here. Your
yeah.
so is that kind of common to change the language of that?
Absolutely, yeah. You wanna kind of almost, I don't know, common language of what people are doing. Everybody's kind of sharing their beliefs, their things they're excited about, things they're passionate about, sharing their faiths. And so that's kind of a, you know, demystifying
Yeah.
like the experience. Um, at the same time, like that the word evangelism, like it's a biblical word, it's a key word. Um, Everybody is an evangelist in some way. They're evangelizing something about their life, their business, their family, their whatever, their fantasy football teams, like all that stuff. They're evangelizing something. So the phrase "share your faith," "share your story," share your beliefs, like those are kind of helpful. Like we're all kind of on the same plane in this conversation.
Mm. Yeah, I feel like maybe a common one these days, and I've said this a few times. Hopefully, if you're listening to this, this doesn't offend you. I don't want to offend anybody here, but as I think even about the political season that we're in, I think a lot of times the thing that I see with a lot of Christians these days online, just as I'm kind of watching, is that the thing that they're evangelizing the most is a politic. Um,
Yeah,
and I've just wondered, like, man, if we were as bold and passionate about sharing the gospel with people as we are about our politics,
yeah,
man, I wonder what God might do. I mean, because I do think you're right. We evangelize the things we care the most about.
we do.
So we wear the t-shirts of our best, sports teams. We talk about it. We love it. We get NFL Red Zone. We want that, we watch the debate and all we can talk about for the next week is just this. And people see that and they hear it and we're
Yep.
evangelizing them. We're sharing the good news that we see in our lives as good news.
Exactly.
Man, what if we took all of that energy and said, you know what, I want to work hard and pray that God would make me most passionate with others about my faith
Yes.
and why. I wonder what God might do. Let me move us on a little bit. I want to make sure that we get to a couple of these things in the 20 or 25 minutes that we have for the podcast. But on that note, as you're thinking about sharing our faith, I it actually reminds me a little bit because one of the first thing that I think we said was in the poll was not sure how to start, not sure how to say it,
Yep.
not sure how to answer people's questions. Like there's this thing and it can feel like it's such a daunting task. And I just wanted to talk for a second about the fact that I wonder if part of that is that we make it more complicated than it needs to be. You know what I mean by that?
Oh
Like as
yeah.
yeah, like we make it so that it feels like I have to know the answers. I have to say the right things. Whereas I wonder if it can be as simple as just sharing our experience with the Lord. This is why I was asking you the question about sharing our faith versus evangelism, because,
Yeah.
if I'm sharing my faith, that's easy. How to start doing it, we're going to talk about in a second. So the beginning doesn't fix the beginning, but I wonder
Yeah.
if it does fix some of the things in the middle. And it reminded me of John 9,
Yeah.
with, there's a man who's born blind and Jesus heals him and the Pharisees are upset. They want to know what happened to the man. Actually, the disciples were asking, "Hey, Jesus, did this man sin, or was it his, mother or father? Like, what happened that was passed down to make this man blind?" And Jesus says, "It's neither one. This
Yeah.
person's blind because I'm going to demonstrate my glory by healing him." But the religious leaders were like, "You have to tell us what happened." The guy originally says, "I don't know. I don't know." They ask his parents, and his parents are like, we don't know. You should ask him. So it says in verse 24 of John chapter 9. So a second time they summoned the man who had been born blind and told him, "Give glory to God. We know that this man is a sinner." They're trying to figure, they want Jesus done so badly. So
Yeah.
here's a guy who couldn't see. Now he can see. He's rejoicing, and they're trying to somehow rope him into something else. They're trying to say, like, I don't know. And I love his answer because he says, whether or not he's a sinner, I don't know. I mean, I have no idea. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know if he's a sinner.
Mhm.
Here's what I do know. I was blind and now I can see. And they say to him, "Well, what did he do to you? How did he open your eyes?" And he said, I told you, you didn't listen. Why do you want to hear it again? You don't want to, do you want to become his disciples too? Like what's going on? And they didn't like it. They didn't like it at all. And he just says, and I love this response because listen, he's sharing his faith, right? He's sharing what's going on. There's nothing complicated. The guy literally doesn't know. He knows nothing about anything. He was blind and now he can see. And he says in verse 30, this is an amazing thing. "You don't know where he's from, and yet he opened my eyes. We know that God doesn't listen to sinners, but if anyone is God-fearing and does his will, he listens to him." Throughout history, no one has ever heard of someone opening the eyes of a person born blind. If this man were not from God, he wouldn't be able to do anything. And so here's this guy. He's like, I have no idea. Sometimes we get this mindset like I have to have everybody's questions. What about the dinosaurs? Where did they go? When did they begin? What happened? Why do bad things happen to good people? And we kind
Yeah.
of get locked up. Like I don't know the answer to this person's question. So instead of engaging that, we kind of back off. And I
Mhm.
wonder, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. I wonder if just saying, I don't know
Yes.
that, but here's my faith. I was born into a family that had, whatever, either a Christian family or I was born into a family that struggled, and I struggled my whole life. I was essentially blind to spiritual things. And God, in this moment, someone shared the gospel with me and it opened my eyes. And the hope I have now is so different than the hope that I thought I had before. It didn't exist.
Mhm.
That's my faith. And so I just would be interested to hear your thoughts on that whole topic of trying to make it simpler than we think it is.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I have had conversations with people where I thought about what I said after the fact, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I missed this, this, and this. I forgot this. I stumbled through this. But I look at how the person received it, and they were just like, oh, like thank you for sharing that. Like that was really helpful. That was encouraging. That was something I'm going to think about. Um, because guess what? Like it wasn't me. Like it wasn't me um getting it right, saying it correctly, saying it poorly, whatever. Like I'm just delivering a message. I'm doing it the best I can. Can I get better at it? Absolutely. You can work at it. You can listen to podcasts like this. You can, learn from people and get better. Absolutely. But at the same time, and we talked about this last time, in Romans 1, it says like I'm unashamed of the gospel, for it is the power for salvation. Like the gospel is what saves people. It's not the eloquence or the smoothness or the creativity of how I deliver it. Um, it really is like a lion in a cage. Like all Jesus is asking us to do is just unlock the cage. Like just unlock it, let them hear it, let them hear the gospel, let them respond to it, wrestle with it, ask questions about it. And maybe there are questions that we're just like, shoot, I don't know about science. I don't know about history. I don't know about archaeology. I don't know about all these things that they could challenge me on. Um, but I have put all my chips in that Jesus is who he says he is, that he lived, died, and resurrected, that his spirit lives in me, and that my faith is that I have a relationship with him forever, and that they could have that too. That's what I'm banking on. And I'm not banking on, oh man, I hope this is right. Like I'm banking on, no, my faith is all in on him, and I want this person to have the opportunity to respond to that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that that's really good. Hopefully everybody just took all that in. When we say share the gospel, we're gonna go deeper, I think, in a couple episodes about about what the
Yeah.
gospel means. But it really is just sharing if the faith that put my trust in Jesus who died for me. That's good news. The gospel, sharing the gospel is not weird. I have a God that chose to die for me because I couldn't do it on my own. And man,
Yeah.
like he changed my life. I want to take it one step further too, as we think about even sharing, my experience. So like people don't know where to start.
Mm,
You've used the phrase in the past, wondering questions, even with me as we're talking about this podcast,
yeah.
asking wondering questions. So I share my experience. Let me just talk about maybe a next step from this. You share your experience, man. I don't know, but God did something in my life. I don't have any hope. A wondering question could be, is that your experience? Like in your life, do you have um times of hopelessness? Like what is that experience for you? And trying to just ask wondering questions to somebody,
Yeah.
include that in a conversation. You also mentioned asking wondering questions at the beginning to get started as you get to know somebody,
Yeah.
just being really intentional about a wondering question. Give me some of those as you think through them. What would be some maybe wondering questions for someone?
Yeah, absolutely. The idea of a wondering question really is like is kind of in a conversation with someone, whether you know them or whether you don't know them, um, is kind of like almost like leading into a gospel conversation. Like what are some ways we can almost kind of get to a atmosphere where it's like, hey, let's talk about this more. So I've had, simple questions that anybody could answer. Questions like, did you go to church growing up? Like what's your church experience, religious background, however it comes up. But everybody has an answer for that. Yes or no. Like like and if there's a no answer to church, it'd be like, hey, well, tell me about it. Like, did you have friends that went to church? Maybe you didn't. Like, kind of what was your reasons for that or your family's reasons for that? Um, Another one I like to think about is like kind of big picture is like, hey, what's your ideal life look like? Like if you could imagine like things going the way that you wanted to, what are the things that you would want in your life to feel like you are fulfilled, satisfied, achieve something? I don't know. Everybody has feelings for that. Everybody has thoughts for that. Um, and you could kind of lead off of that, whatever answers they give you. maybe even thinking about problems in the world. Like I think everybody knows that the world is not the way it should be, right? There's so many problems out there that need to be fixed. Um, so just asking like, hey, like what are the things that really bug you? Like what are the things like where you look in the world and you're like, man, I wish that was different. And then just asking, okay, why are you so passionate about that? Like, why do you think that needs to get fixed? Um, and I think finally, just something even with friends that we have in our life, when we think about it, we have actually never really shared why we believe in Jesus. We've never took the time to do that. And I think there's been some interesting conversations where you can actually ask your friends, like, hey, have I ever shared my faith with you? Like, have I ever shared with you why I believe what I believe, why I go to church, why I do this? They'll probably say, no, I don't think I know why. And just say, hey, can I just share that with you for a little bit? That opens up some really interesting conversations because they're hearing your story and they're hearing your why.
Hmm.
Um, and they might ask more.
Hmm.
So
That's good. In the last minute that we have here, and again, I hope that everybody took all those questions and just think of your own. Doesn't have to be those. It can be those, but just wondering questions to get people to talk. I wonder if one of the things that locks us up is we think, well, I don't want people to feel. I know this is me. Sometimes being a pastor in particular, when people know it, you know, and I start asking questions, I get the sometimes what locks me up is thinking. I don't want people to think that I'm trying to save them, or evangelize them. And I'm just getting over that and going, no, that's what I am trying to do.
yes,
That's definitely what I'm trying to do. I don't want to hide that. That's a yeah, I am trying to help. I'm trying to get you to believe that this is where I'm at. So just let's get over the awkwardness of it. That is what I'm trying to do. And ask the wondering questions. Also just recognizing people love talking about themselves.
they
So if we
do.
can get them talking about themselves, and what they believe and why, I think it gives us inroads into share our faith story and our faith life. So I think a couple things to take away from this, everybody, would be maybe we start using the phrase, my faith story. What did you say again? My faith, instead of evangelism, sharing my faith.
Just
Sorry,
sharing my
yeah,
faith. Yeah.
yeah, sharing my faith. So what is it? Maybe we start thinking through that language. Sharing my faith. Ask wondering questions. It's okay to say I don't know. Just being
Yes.
simple in your experience. Um, I don't know. I was blind and now I see. What do you think about that?
Yeah. Just
Yeah,
just taking that step of faith, which is the one step forward of just saying, hey, like this is my story. This is my faith. This is who I believe in. I don't have a lot of answers, but I know the one who does,
yeah.
and I want to introduce you to him.
It's great. It's great. Listen, everyone, thanks for jumping in with us. Join us next time. We're going to talk about some of the words that everybody kind of had for this. We wrote down words. If you didn't join us, if you weren't at church that Sunday, be thinking about what words come to mind. Words or phrases come to mind when you think about evangelism or sharing your faith. Think what words or phrases kind of bubble up in your heart and mind. And we're going to talk a little bit about that next time, in a couple weeks. So until then, everybody, we'll talk to you soon. See ya.
See you guys.